episode 6 of River Talk. Today is November 4th, 2016, and today we are going to once again be discussing the election that is going on in the United States right now. And as of right now, we actually pulled up a map of where states kind of look right now when it comes to the average pollings in all the states. So we're going to be going through the states they need to win for each candidate to become the next president of the United States. But for right now, just the state of the race is just unbelievable right now.
The polls have tightened. Numbers are closer than before the debate. It's crazy.
I mean, you know, we looked back several weeks ago, was it like 3 weeks ago, we were saying, oh, this is too close to call. We have no idea who's going to come out of this. 3 debates later, it basically went back to, okay, it's pretty obvious Hillary's going to win. Then, now with more things come about Hillary,
so
with the reopening of the
what do you guys think is the cause of that? Is it just the investigation? What do you guys think is Trump's biggest leap as of lately?
I think he's also been gaining momentum even before the FBI reopened their investigation into Hillary's emails, because I mean, if you've been watching his speeches lately, they've been much more on policy and on issue, and he's taken this investigation and not really. He hasn't run with it too much. He's kind of like, people have started to come pay attention to him now because they want to know what he has to say in response to this. And he's just been talking about substance, and I think that's been helping him a lot.
That's definitely what has been noted. I mean, and his wife gave a speech yesterday in Pennsylvania, I think, about, you know, women's rights, against bullying, stuff like that. It's just the Trump family itself, like, they're trying to stay out of the news when it comes to, like, controversy. And so with that, they're doing a better job with that. They're becoming more polished in trying to get their message about, instead of, you know, things coming up 10 years ago. Like, they managed to somehow get past all that and still remain like a competitive.
Yeah, we've seen throughout this entire thing. I mean, before the primaries, during the primaries, during this whole mess, we've seen just shot after shot after shot come from any which way direction at Trump, and it's amazing how he kind of just takes it. He has this incredible knack to get people to talk about whatever he wants them to talk about, and it's almost admirable.
Well, and you have like people who support Trump, they support Trump. There isn't minor supporters. If they support Trump, they are loyal to you know the end, and that's definitely helping him because you have people for other candidates who are a little bit more yes, they like him but not love him. But Trump supporters, if they support Trump, they are all out.
That's definitely been the most enthusiastic.
And in the last couple of days, Clinton has been trying to deploy all of her surrogates. We're talking Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, President Obama, Vice President, First Lady. And it's just astounding how even with all the support from the current administration, she is not capable of just like getting ahead even a little bit. Like, it's razor thin right now, like it's in the margin of errors, the averages nationally. It's just, it's incredible, really. He's not even a politician either.
It's something to be said, there are a lot of speculators out there that have said, Trump's got a large quantity of closet voters. People that, like, especially during the primaries before kind of people have looked at Trump as a serious candidate, you had these people that were probably scared to say that they were going to vote for Trump because, like we've seen from all people, from all kinds of supporters, that this is the most vile kind of like scary election cycle. So I mean, you could have like an entire group of people that are going to vote for him that haven't just been vocal about it.
A silent majority, as he calls it during his speeches.
I always see a lot of his supporters carrying that sign, the silent majorities with Trump.
Yeah.
So I mean, with Trump and his company doing all sorts of more campaigning through the FBI investigations, but I think the other thing that people kind of look past nowadays is that we still are seeing growth from Gary Johnson, Jill Stein, and Evan McMullin, less from the later two, but we've still seen a little bit of growth from them. But it's interesting to think about who they're taking votes from and who they're.
I actually watched CNN the other day, and they were looking at early voting and seeing what states have early voting, and then who voted and which way a state is leaning towards right now. And actually, they broke down the numbers in Florida, and it actually most of them were for Trump already. And then there was also almost 500,000 votes already submitted for just like third-party candidates, like, which is a very substantial number.
That's half of Gary's total in the 2012 election.
It's just astounding how people are just so upset. They're just looking for a way out. They're wanting to vote their conscience, really, and they just don't see it with either of the major candidates right now.
Right. Well, technology. So it's
I'm actually
interesting.
gonna go wake that up.
Speaking of CNN, have you guys heard about talking more? You know, we've with the FBI thing, with the WikiLeaks thing, we've seen CNN kind of do away with Donna Brazile. Have you guys caught up on this?
It's about time.
Which one was Brazil?
Donna Brazile.
He's the current head of the DNC. She was a
Oh,
she was
gotcha,
a pundit on
gotcha.
CNN.
Yeah. So some evidence came out against her from the FBI, from the WikiLeaks, saying that she had access to questions before debates. So obviously that's a lot of red flags. But it's interesting to see that CNN cut ties with her. You know, it just makes you wonder what else. You know, what other cookie jars are their fingers in.
So many tentacles in so many places. It's
Right.
just.
Which is this interesting kind of. It's interesting. It's interesting to think about how long, if nothing else, has this kind of manipulation from behind. You know, I mean, obviously news networks aren't what they used to be. You know, they're like what, 5 big news networks,
Yeah.
and you know, I think that's why I think they've gotten big to the point where people are starting to go to more, you know, your Breitbarts, your InfoWars, your Young Turks, these kind of alternative news sources, because regardless of your policies, you know, you see this kind of cheesy, slimy car salesman kind of attitude from all the big news networks.
It's just a matter of keeping attention away from issues.
Mhm.
That's the whole point of major media sources now, basically. And so, you guys want to run through like
What states we need to?
Yeah.
what-
All right. So, I'm actually going to walk over here and kind of just go through it. So,
Real professional.
okay. So I want you to point out which states you think that Trump has the best chances of winning that are currently toss-ups. I'll go ahead and give it to him.
I would say for sure the great state of Iowa would go.
Definitely. He's
Yeah,
been.
he's
oh,
been ahead in Iowa for.
Give me 2 seconds.
Take before the primaries. So, you know, you look at Florida. You look at.
Okay. So let's say Iowa goes Trump.
I would say Ohio's
That's
also.
definitely Ohio. He's been leading there for a while.
I'd give him Georgia.
Yep, definitely Georgia also there. Let's give him Arizona. He's been ahead in Nevada recently as well.
Mhm.
So what about Colorado? That's been kind of solid blue for the most part. Michigan, Pennsylvania, for the most part, has been blue. Virginia as well. So North Carolina has been, the last poll I saw come out of North Carolina had him up by 7 points. So let's say he wins North Carolina. He's been up in Florida for a while now. That's kind of switched. That's kind of been back and forth. There's not really a sure winner there. But let's just say he wins that. And then here's what it comes down to: New Hampshire and Maine. So he's been ahead. He's ahead in New Hampshire now. And then let's say she takes Maine. We're left in this situation, 268 to 269.
You got the one congressional
then, yeah.
district in Maine where
Yeah, I
he's
saw
still
that.
leading.
And then, I mean,
Or it's been back and forth.
it's
but-
either it's a stalemate or Trump's president. Those are the only 2 options if the states vote the way.
You know, it's still, you know, it's still definitely some ground to make up, but I mean, if the silent majority is that big,
You could see Pennsylvania flip. That'd be a bit of a stretch. And
I don't know. The last poll I saw of Pennsylvania though had her up by 2, so I mean anything is possible.
And I saw one out of Colorado from I think the University of Denver where they're tied. That would surprise me considering the younger millennials been moving there. But
I mean, and then if it comes down to this situation, this all comes down to Congress to elect their next president.
And Congress is
it all
overwhelmingly
matters
Republican.
who's going to get voted into Congress now, who would decide the election actually. And it's just interesting to think that Republicans have been so concerned about mainly with down ballot voting than supporting the top of the ticket. And so they're poised to lose some seats. They might gain some in the Senate. They're definitely going to lose some in the House. It's just really interesting to see like how this will turn out.
yeah,
This is probably one of the, at least in our lifetimes anyway, one of the closest elections. You can't call it either way yet. It's just really astounding.
yeah, see, what else is interesting is that, like, this is probably, no matter who gets it, it's probably only going to be a 4-year presidency.
Because they're both so widely popular.
So yeah, like in our lifetime, I don't know that there will ever be as nail biting a race as this. Well, we'll be back after a short break.
All right, and welcome back to River Talk. We just took a short break there, and right now we're going to be looking at a different source of polling for the U.S. election. So this website itself is called 538. So how this website works, it has 3 different areas in which it does polling. It just does it based on current polling right now. Then the other way they do it is by historical turnout, demographics in states, and how they usually vote, as well as, of course, if you were to vote right, if people vote right now, who would be elected president. And so it kind of calculates and factors in right now the percentages that each candidate has to be president of the United States. So up there it's 64 for Hillary and 34 for Donald Trump. So it does it a lot differently, and a lot of states look different compared to Real Clear Politics, which has a lot more toss-up states. This is more well-defined who's probably going to win each state. So what are you guys' kind of thoughts on the difference in the way he polls?
I like Real Clear Politics better.
Do you? Yeah, I was, it's just really interesting to see how, I mean, and he does the same thing, this one is just polls only, and so it tells a very different story compared to Real Clear Politics.
I mean, the thing with Real Clear Politics is that it gives you pure numbers, which is fine for turnout. But at some point you want to learn about what kind of demographics.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a large level of science into campaigning towards a certain demographic. So I would think that, candidates planning to run in the future, what did I eat? Candidates planning to run in the future, would want to kind of gauge this with a fairly open and, okay, what areas do we need to improve on? What,
because when you're campaigning, you do have to take more into account than just little things. There's so many variables, and those have to be taken into account when you're trying to figure out, who to go towards and who might win.
It's all about crafting your message to the right people. And Donald Trump crafted his message to give African Americans a new deal kind of thing, which is very interesting speech he gave.
What we've seen in this campaign, a lot on both sides, I'm gonna go ahead and say more from the left, is a lot of kind of pandering, to your minorities, to your ethnic minorities, to your millennials, we've seen a lot more kind of individually gauged efforts there, but then on the right we've seen just kind of an all-inclusive kind of thing. I thought it was interesting. So Donald Trump's campaign, up until it was the second or third debate when the issue of abortion came up, a lot of the more kind of Christian conservative kind of people didn't really think, well, he's not really all that invested in religious views. But then as soon as he gets on the, his abortion thing, then I think that's what picked him up some of the speed. We've obviously a lot of the establishment doesn't care for Donald Trump. They don't want Donald Trump. But they start to see, well, we don't want Hillary Clinton, and, well, maybe we agree with them on this kind of thing. So, it's that kind of messaging like that I think has really started to pick up his numbers more.
Yeah, definitely. With a lot of the things that he has said, both recently and in the past, it definitely made a lot of Christian conservative voters really concerned about, his views, his ethics, stuff like that, really brought it to question. And then with him crafting his message better towards that and actually taking a very serious stance like he has now has definitely garnished more support.
That's kind of been his cursed blessing almost. It's like sometimes he can say something that will really get people hooked in, but then the very next day he can say something that'll piss off everybody and their mother. He has a very special knack of doing that.
He has a very weird charisma about him.
Yeah.
And it's just really hard to explain because usually when a candidate has had so much controversy, made so many mistakes, they'd be out of the game right now. There would be no chance of them coming back. But it's just so difficult
Right.
to. He's not a politician, that's for sure, and I don't know if it's because he's not a politician that.
That so
and
many
we're-
people, that he's not on the politically correct.
Yeah.
So that does play a big role, because some people are tired of politicians, they're tired of, all the corruption happening, so they want to change, and that's definitely helping him.
Mhm.
Hillary is a politician.
Right.
That is
Mhm.
what she has done with her life.
That's
He is
just-
not, and that is definitely helping him out.
Definitely.
And so now what he's done is he's gotten, he's gotten some establishment people, obviously. Marco Rubio said, vote the party. I think even recently Ted Cruz said,
Yep.
vote the party. And even before that, he had, Ben Carson, who was not anywhere near establishment status, So he's done kind of an interesting thing with bringing the establishment and whatnot together. I would argue that he's done it better than Hillary has. We saw from the DNC, a lot of Bernie supporters were not very happy
Mhm.
with that, how that turned out. And then Bernie, said, let's not make Trump president. So, we saw. So we've seen, I think, a little bit of a merge. I think she could do better, but I think we've seen a little bit of a merge from the Bernie and the Hillary people.
Yeah, that's obviously a lot of people followed what Bernie said and said, hey, I lost, so let's just make sure Hillary gets elected president. That probably got about, let's just say hypothetically, like 60%, a fair majority of his supporters, and then everybody else was just like Jill Stein or Johnson, or I'll vote Trump now because he got cheated out of the nomination, but I mean, like.
Right, we've seen so much different canoodling from behind the scenes that,
And the thing about this election, it really opened it up to how, like, the establishment wants things done in a certain way. They want certain things to happen, and once it gets out of control, they're like, well.
Yeah, I think that, I think the most important thing with this election, it's kind of taught the American people, is that the two-party system, while good, is not perfect.
Mhm.
I think that's definitely opened up the door for a lot of people. One of the more, kind of admirable things that, Bernie Sanders did from the very beginning was like, yeah, I'm a democratic socialist. I believe in the foundations of socialism. And people took that and they ran with it, and, he had a humongous following. And I think we've seen a lot of growth in the Libertarian Party as well, see people rooting for more, like, small government, small regulation type thing. So I think that overall is going to have a definitely positive effect on future elections. We've seen, I think there are going to be a lot more voices heard.
Because politics are starting to more catch up with the times. Times have changed so much, and we're changing at such a rapid rate.
Mhm.
Politics has to keep up. Law has to be able to keep up. And we're seeing, starting to change more towards what we know now versus what it was 50 years ago.
Mhm.
I just think when people of our generation become politicians, it's going to be a lot different world, I think, compared to, like, the kind we see now.
Oh, absolutely. I think, with the growth of the kind of socialist represented people and the Green Party represented people and the Libertarian, for a long time, I think people just kind of tossed libertarianism with republicanism, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but, they're at this point, they're two separate things. They're two separate entities for sure. And so, when you create that more of a gap, you start to force people to think more directly about what they want from the country. It could have been said that Republicans and Libertarians would have voted the same on foreign policy 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, now it's completely different.
Definitely opposite. It's just policy shifts, party shifts, massive shifts, really. Like, Republicans are starting to question, is this really my party now, as they view like Governor Gary Johnson and his standpoints,
Right.
etc. And so,
Right. So we've seen we've seen it almost diminish, from the right,
yeah,
where the right was kind of stereotyped to an extent of, all these white, rich, Christian conservative men, that want to run things, and we've seen the young, stupid, uneducated, liberal, whatever. The stereotypes are going away, and people are really starting to realize that. And so I think, with more generations getting involved in politics, I think it's definitely a good thing. you know, it's hard to say that it's a good thing when, you know, the 85-year-old people are running the country that, you know, they're not going to be around for too much longer. I feel grim saying that, but you know, you have to work for the future.
It looks like our screen went away, so I guess that means it's our turn to do that as well. By the time we do our next video, Election Day will have passed, so make sure next Tuesday to go out and vote for your candidate, whoever it might be, just do it. Thank you.
Vote for your local politicians too.